now we get to play the fun game of figuring out whether my phone is going to decide to connect to the PowerPoint. And if it doesn't for some reason, then hopefully someone can control the slides from somewhere else. Oh, wait. Ho-ho, we did it! Okay. That's the first victory for King Jesus today. My name is Father Michael. I serve in Holy Trinity Parish, and you may know me as the priest who Father Aaron tried to kill with a very large rock. This is a depiction of the moment. You know, you can see here in the wild is Father Aaron excited to throw a rock down at his brother. It's nice to be a companion of the cross priest with Father Simon, with Father Aaron, even though he's trying to kill me. We're on the same team here in Halifax area, but we came from very far away actually to get here. Myself, I'm originally from the West Coast, British Columbia, and it's about 5,000, a little bit over 5,000 kilometers all the way out there. And then Father Aaron is from Sri Lanka, so that's over 13,000 kilometers way on the other side of the world, and then kind of hailing more recently from Toronto. But here we are answering this same call to go on an adventure, on a mission with the King of the universe, to serve our King Jesus. And this is not ever something I thought would be a part of my life. Father Aaron and I joined this community about 8 years ago, and well, here's a picture of us all baby-faced back then. We spent a year in, mostly silence, waiting before we were sort of let out to go to seminary. But then all the adventures that we've had since have been amazing. We had this time of waiting, but then Father Aaron may have told you about our most recent trip up to Cape Breton, and that was just sort of a beautiful recreational time of brotherhood. But also, Father Aaron and I got to go to Rome this summer. And what an adventure that was, going to the heart of the church, getting to see all of these saints, all these beautiful places, St. Peter's. And then this third picture in the bottom left, that's when Father Aaron and I were still seminarians, and we came out on something called the Exalt Tour. It actually came here to St. Benedict's last summer, and to Holy Trinity as well, where we prayed with people for healing. And in that mission, when we were on Jesus' team, we saw all sorts of people get healed. The adventure with my brothers on Jesus' team has been, and I think will continue to be, awesome. So, how did Jesus become my king? How did I identify him as my king? Well, we have to go way back in the history of my life for that. And maybe I'll start with my favorite childhood movie. As a kid, I really liked the movie The Sword in the Stone. It's an old Disney movie that came out in 1963, but it stars this kid who's kind of lanky. He's being tapped on the head by a wizard there, and he's going to grow up to be King Arthur, going out and saving people in the world. A great adventure. But as a kid, he doesn't really think that's for him. He doesn't set his eyes on great mission because he thinks he's too lowly. He thinks he's too weak, too skinny, too awkward. And over the course of the movie, he learns that he is called to great mission. This isn't a picture from the movie, but it's just the idea of King Arthur going out with his knights, going on great mission together. Just like now, I feel called to go on great missions with my brothers. But way back when I was a kid, way back, I didn't identify with that I could go on these great adventures with God. I was a skinny kid. I was not good at sports. I wasn't even very bright, to be honest. I didn't get good grades. And so what could I do? I could kind of keep my head down and kind of hope to just kind of get through life. But that wasn't God's plan for me. I don't think it's God's plan for any of us to just get through life. He wants us to flourish, He wants us to thrive, and He wants to be with us on great adventures. But maybe you have felt or do feel sometimes like I felt. Those moments where you're worried that maybe you're not enough. You're the skinny kid, you're the wimpy kid somewhere in your heart. I remember when I was in high school, I didn't have a lot of friends in my first year there, and I felt very anxious a lot of the time, kind of hoping that I could just get through my day without anyone noticing me, feeling a little paranoid that if anyone was laughing, maybe they were laughing at me. Maybe that's a place that you've been too. I had witnesses even at that point in my life to Jesus being the king of my life, my mom, my grandma, others, but it didn't really stick at that stage. I didn't really identify Jesus as someone who was with me and who was my king. Notably, that changed for me in university. They started to have these adoration nights, which were beautiful, and I felt attracted to them. I wanted to go and spend time with Jesus at the church. I couldn't quite put my finger on why, but I really wanted to. And then I remember this one day, there were some of us young adults having a meeting with a priest, and he just encouraged us to visualize Jesus in our days, to visualize him with us while we're having a cup of tea, while we're going for a walk. I don't know, when you're washing the dishes, just imagine him there giving you a shoulder rub. And I thought, that's weird. I'm not going to do that. So later that week, as I was washing the dishes, I thought, why not give it a shot? And so I imagined Jesus behind me, putting his hands on my shoulders. And I was filled with a sense of peace that I had never experienced before in my life. I'm a very imaginative person. I've never had something that I've thought of create something inside me so real. And that's because I wasn't imagining something false, like a pink hippopotamus. I was imagining and visualizing something that was real, that Jesus was with me. And when I made that connection, I felt his peace. Because that's who Jesus is. That's his royal signature. If he's our king, we will experience him as the Prince of Peace. And that's what St. Paul talks about today. Jesus making peace with us through his cross. And so on the cross, there's a man who's in distress. A man who's about to be, who he is crucified with Jesus. He's going to die. When God saw me in my distress, he reached out to me through people who were already on his team. And I responded, yes, Jesus, I want you in my life. Yes, I want to be in your team. And I experienced his peace. And then I am experiencing this great adventure of being on mission with Jesus. I remember the first time that I just went into a chapel to pray, and I didn't care. I didn't feel anxious at all about who was sitting next to me, which is normally something that would make me anxious. Who's going to sit next to me? I didn't care because I knew Jesus was with me. And so imagine this man on the cross next to Jesus, the good thief. Imagine the distress he was in. But in that moment of facing death, the peace that would come to him from hearing, today you will be with me in paradise. Because Jesus is about to ascend to his throne. The good news for us today is Jesus is already on his throne. And so the message today is this: today you can be with me. Not in a paradise of heaven yet. That's our hope, one day to come. But Jesus is still king, reigning from his throne in heaven over all the earth. And in any moment, we can choose to acknowledge that and be with him. And what does that mean for our lives? That great joy of receiving his peace and forgiveness. What it means for me is that a good number of years ago, I was at an amusement park with some of my brother seminarians, and I was on a roller coaster, and it was exhilarating, and it was fun, and I was going down, and the thought that I had was, being with Jesus is better and more enjoyable than this. That's how exciting prayer times had become for me. That's how exciting the adventure of going on mission with Jesus had become for me. It was better than a roller coaster. Doesn't that sound like something worth getting to you? And doesn't it sound like something worth giving? About a month ago, there was a little series here called Servants of the Kingdom. And Father Simon talked about serving, about not just having an attitude of gratitude, being grateful that Jesus is my King and that he fills me with peace and joy and that I get to be on mission with him, but to actually act on it, to go out and to serve. That St. Benedict's parish would not just be a healthy parish, but one that would reach out and evangelize. I think that this word from Father Simon is spot on, because when I came here for an Adore Night about a month ago, I had these senses coming to me in prayer from God. I felt like he was saying, I want what's happening here to go out. What happens here at St. Benedict's, I want it to go out to others. I want to spread the fire that's here. And I got this image of like a champagne bottle getting shaken up and exploding in celebration and in joy, sharing that joy and that peace with others. Being his team members who go out into the world and gather more team members together with him. This is the adventure that we are called to with the King. And so I want to reject and renounce any part of my heart that thinks I'm still the skinny kid who can't go on adventures with the Lord. I can, and you can too. But it starts with just being with him. And so right around the corner, we have this season of Advent. It's a time of waiting and of praying and being with the King. And so if you want to go on great adventures with the King, begin with recognizing him in your day, with meditating on the fact that he is here with you. Today you can be with him. And you can do that throughout your day, but you can also do it by coming into the King's court, coming here to church to pray. And so I want to highlight 2 events that are coming up soon that you could activate this with. On Friday, St. Benedict's is having its Proclaim Night. Come back to the King's court here and just be with him to prepare yourself for when he's going to call you out to adventure. And hey, if you can't make it here this Friday, but you're free next Friday, at Holy Trinity Parish, we're going to have our very first worship night. We're going to call it Ignite, and it's going to start at 7, and you could come out and, I don't know, if you like this homily and you like me, you could come see me. But more importantly, see Jesus and spend time with him so that when he calls you to the adventure that he wants you to go on with him, you'll be ready because you'll have spent lots of time with him.